hit the Golan Heights, would that be considered sort of an acceptable strike that Israel wouldn't necessarily, pound Iran into pieces for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you're right. I think the Iranians must feel the need to respond, whether for domestic purposes or international purposes. They feel the need to respond, and therefore they've been telegraphing this for weeks. It's very odd. You don't usually see the President of the United States come out and say, suggest they're getting either really good intelligence reporting, or the Iranians have telegraphed very clearly, now the strike is coming, be prepared. That allows the Israelis to prepare, allows them to knock these missiles down. It allows the Iranians to say, we did something. We'll see if this is not a large-scale attack or against, like you say, the Golan or another part of Israel, not the population centers, not Tel Aviv, not Jerusalem. It may very well be the case that Israel doesn't feel the need to respond, and we just sort of move on from this. But I do think if a single missile gets through, if a single Israeli civilian dies, Israel will have to respond, and it will be ferocious.
All right, so, well, I had a question, and I just lost it. Again, it's a waiting game. We have to wait and see what happens, how many of these missiles get through, and where they are targeted.
That's exactly right. I think that is the key question. Is Iran trying to actually kill Israelis? Are they trying to just make a point that, hey, look, you hit our guy. He's a senior Quds Force commander, the commander of the Lebanon forces. We're gonna now push back and demonstrate to you that we're mad, or are they really trying to start a war with Israel?
Yep.
I think that question, that calibration, will be something that comes into play over the next few hours. We'll see, and we'll see how successful the U.S. and Israelis are in knocking down some of these missiles. As your correspondent,
it says Iran fires 100 drone missiles at Israel.
These things with their Aegis systems.
Jamil Jaffer from the National Security Institute.
And
Jamil,
it's like the drones that we're talking about on Call of Duty.
So Iran has launched dozens
Modern
of
Warfare
drones
3 and Black Ops 2. This is technically what it'll be for Israel. If it's actually gonna make it to them, then this is what will happen. The sound is not fun. But this is more than 100 on the game. Of course, it's just video game.
We do expect assistance from Israeli allies to ensure that many of these drones and possibly even missiles are intercepted before they reach Israel. Now, Iranian state media at this hour, John, is putting out what can only be described as propaganda. They say they've launched a new wave of ballistic missiles. We cannot confirm that information. And based on how quickly those missiles would reach Israel, you would expect sirens to be sounding in locations across
my
this
experience
country,
of playing
and
these
that is simply
games
not the case
with the
at this
drones
moment.
and stuff
What
like
we
that.
can report, according to sources, Israeli officials are still meeting at this hour at the Kiryat, Israel's version of the Pentagon, just a few miles from where we are standing in Tel Aviv. They are trying to determine what the Israeli response will be and to get a grip on what the full scale of this attack really looks like. There is an understanding that these drones could target just military installations in the northern and southern part of this country, avoiding major population centers like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. This may then draw a limited Israeli response.
Currently 1:02 a.m. right now.
Israel wants to wait and see
Imagine you
just
trying
how
to
large
sleep,
this attack is,
and this
if
crap is
indeed
happening.
The Iranians are trying to time the drone attack with a missile attack that could overwhelm Israel's air defense systems that are currently on high alert across this country. So again, this is really an unprecedented moment for Israel. A direct attack from Iran. We can confirm dozens of drones have been launched, including from Iranian territory, toward Israel. And at this hour, Israeli forces and their allies are trying to engage these drones and shoot them down before they reach Israeli airspace. John?
And it's our understanding that U.S.
Scary.
forces have also launched anti.
Because when she was telling me about it, I'm like, no way.
And that the U.S.
And then
forces
she was
took down
saying
some of
it's
these drones, which
like
obviously is welcome
drones
news to the
flying
Israelis,
over
Trey.
to
Absolutely, the Israelis need to know, according to
it's
sources
heading over
we've
to
talked with,
Israel
that the
to
United
cause
States has
destruction.
their back. There is an understanding on the
And I'm
ground
like,
that
wait a
what's
second.
happening as
So
we
I
speak,
looked
John,
up
could be the first
the
of
Call
a
of
very
Duty
difficult chapter for
Scorched Streak
Israel if
that
this
shows
response from
Swarm.
Iran evolves into a
And then
broader
I told my
regional
mom,
conflict.
I was
And
like,
this is a
hey,
very real
like, come
possibility,
look at this.
given the fact
And
that
I
the
showed her.
Iranians
She was
have
like, oh
control
my God.
over proxies in the
I'm
region.
like,
They
yeah,
also have drones of their own, cruise missiles
drones.
and precision-guided missiles.
You
We're
know
talking
what a
about
swarm of drones
organizations
is going to
like the
be.
Iran-backed Houthis in
That's
Yemen
crazy.
and the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Even earlier today, and even last hour, Hezbollah was launching rockets into northern Israel. Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted many of those rockets, but it gives you a sense of how active Israel's northern front has been since October, when the war erupted between Israel and Gaza. The Israelis have been at war for more than 6 months now. This country has been on a state of alert. And when the decision was made by the top defense echelon here in Tel Aviv to launch this strike earlier in the month against the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria, taking out 2 top Iranian generals, the Israelis understood that it could draw an Iranian response. But the response that is taking place tonight is something Israel has not seen in the past. It is part of the reason Israel's Home Front Command has communicated a message of caution to Israeli civilians. The Israeli government is trying to walk a fine line right now to ensure that Israeli civilians are cautious, close to bomb shelters, and prepared if this does unfold and unravel into a larger situation. But they also want to make sure they have the appropriate instructions. And as of this hour, John, just past 1 a.m. local time, the instructions are to avoid large gatherings of people, and all educational activities have been canceled across the country. We do expect these instructions to be updated as this but this is very much an active attack that is unfolding as we speak, that right now involves dozens of drones that have been fired from Iranian territory and potentially other countries like Iraq, from Iran-backed Iraqi Shia militias. And again, Israeli forces are waiting to see some of these larger proxies in the region get involved. John.
All right, Trey Yingst on standby for us in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you. With the large box on your screen, I stress that these cruise missiles are relatively slow flying. It is going to take hours for them to reach Israeli territory from Iran, where they were launched. And so until they land, we won't know how many they are and what the
flying
targets
over
are.
Iraq towards Israel.
A very, very nervous night in
Yeah,
Israel
damn.
right now. So as tensions escalate, President Biden has cut his weekend short to meet with his national security team at the White House. That's where we find Jackie Heinrich. She's live.
For sure, they
Latest
better
there. Jackie.
start hiding right now
John,
and
Iran has
getting
officially ignored
under
President Biden's
things.
warning of don't that he expressed yesterday, even though at the same time he said a strike from Iran to Israel was expected sooner than later. Now that it is underway, the president made his way back from his Delaware beach house where he was expected to spend the weekend. He went straight into the Oval Office, out of reach of reporters. We have not gotten a statement on paper even from the president since all of this began, but we have been hearing from the National Security Council. They've been sharing what the president is going to be doing here at the White House. We know that he is in the Situation Room this evening, meeting with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense,
Like
the
real
Chairman of the Joint
life
Chiefs, the CIA
Call of Duty
Director, the Director of National Intelligence, the Homeland Security Director, and
propaganda
also the National
stuff.
Security Advisor and the NSC Coordinator to the Middle East. They are going to be discussing what happens next, with the Vice President dialing into that meeting from a secure video link to assess what is happening and ensure that whatever Israel does next is proportionate. The U.S. and Israel do not want to invite a wider war with Iran, and their messaging in the last couple of days has been aimed at discouraging Iran from taking any action
How would you feel
that
if
would
there was
devolve
100
into
plus
a further,
drones
broader
flying over
regional
us?
conflict. We know also that the U.S. CENTCOM commander was in Israel to coordinate
I
closely
mean, you're running.
with the Israelis on what might be their response.
If it has
to
this type
Iranian
of
strike, because
technology,
the US was
you're
reportedly,
running,
Pentagon
but
reportedly
it sees
frustrated
wherever
that
you're
the US was in the
going. It
dark
could
ahead
slow
of
down
a
and stop and
suspected
then follow
Israeli
you
strike,
into like
in Syria
a
that
building.
took out a top Iranian general and spurred all
And
of
then
this that we are seeing happen right now. The frustration they had was that the U.S. troops who were stationed in
to
the
work,
region could be put at
you
risk.
get
And the
yourself
president, on his
stuck in
way
a
to Delaware
predicament
yesterday, was asked if
and
he is afraid that any American forces are
bossy
going to
roads.
be attacked, and he said he's always worried about American troops. So we have been watching statements of support for Israel's defense come from
So
the
saying when
White
she was
House,
telling me about it,
guarantees that U.S. support is ironclad. We've also seen that
my
echoed
hairs
from
on my
countries
arm
like
popped up.
France. The extent to which other allies are going to be helping Israel in its response in intercepting any launches that are headed its way. We don't have too many details right now on the extent to which that effort will be happening, and we are still awaiting anything from the president, John, any message directly from him on this. John.
All right, Jackie Heinrich reporting live from the White House. Jackie, thank you.
Thanks.
For more on the latest here, let's bring in Michael Waltz. He is the first Green Beret to serve in Congress, a Florida congressman and member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I mentioned it earlier. I've been reading intelligence briefs for a week or more that this was expected out of Iran. Is this something that you expected, Congressman?
Well, John, I think we have to take a step back here. There is no other way to describe the Obama-Biden Middle East policy except as a dangerous disaster. I mean, this is an utter calamity. And in just a few years ago, under President Trump, ISIS was destroyed, Iran was broke and on their back foot, and we had the Abraham Accords. And